in this part of the lecture, we are going to talk about the switch statement, and the switch statement is something like the if and else statement, but whenever you have so many nested if and else statements, so you can replace the if and else statement into switch statement. For example, here we are evaluating the letter grade. If it is A, see out excellent, or else if B, see out this one, else if. So you can see so many if and else here, and this one can be easily implemented using the switch and case. So it's already called switch, but inside the switch we have some cases. For example, we are evaluating which variable in the if and else statement? Letter grade. We need to put that letter grade in the switch statement. So we are evaluating this letter grade, and we have to open the bracket and close the bracket at the end of the switch. Inside the switch we have something which is called case, okay, and we say case A instead of saying if letter grade equals to A. We say case A, case B, case C, case D, and we are going to talk about default later. So that means if this letter grade equals to A, so this A is a value which refers to that letter grade, that variable which we are evaluating. So this one applies on this variable. This is a data or a value which can be inside this variable. So if the letter grade equals to A, see out, we need to put write down those points, and we say see out excellent, and we need to break the switch. So when you are saying break here, this break close the switch statement, ends the switch statement. So from here it goes directly to the end of the switch if the letter equals to A. But if the letter is not doesn't equal to A, what happens? The switch goes to the second one, which is case B. If it doesn't equal to B, it goes to this one or this one. Or if the value we are entering, or the value is already given to the letter grade, is not A, B, C or D, it's another value, what's going to happen? It prints the default value. It shows the default values. So if it is default, if it is any other value apart from those values, what's going to happen? See out fail, and then break goes to the end of the switch. So I suggest to write down the break after each case in order to break down the switch statement. And here we are going to explain how the switch statement works. And for example, we've got this prototype example. We say switch, and between the two parentheses and the expression, we are going to write the variable name there, and we are going to evaluate the cases of that variable. So at the beginning it checks for the expression, so it checks for this expression. So is it equal value 1? So we've got case 1, case value 1, sorry. That means is it equal to value 1? If yes, if this one is true, what happens? The statement 1 is going to be executed. While it's going to be one statement or multiple statements, it's alright. And then this break breaks off the switch expression, so it goes to the end of the switch. And then if, for example, if it's not equal to value 1, it checks for the second value. Is it equal to value 2? If it is yes, so it's going to, this one is going to be executed, and then goes to the end of the switch. So if it is neither value 1 nor value 2, what's going to be executed? The default statement is going to be executed. So this statement, whatever is written here, is going to be executed, and then break, and then goes to the end of the switch statement. Then we've got this example. We've got int value equal to 1, switch value, case 1, case 2, and default. So what happens? The first thing, this one is going to be evaluated. So evaluates this value to 1. Why? Because we have already initialized this value to 1. Then it checks for this one. Is it equal to this value? Is it equal to this case? Okay, so 1 equals to 1. So that's right. So this one is going to be executed. So what's going to be the output? 1, and then break, it goes to the so it prints 1, then break goes to the end of the switch. So what is happening next? The output is going to be 1. So what happens if we say the value equals to 1, and then we are evaluating this statement, which is value plus 1? So the value is going to be 2, and case 1, what happens? The case 1 is false. Why? Because the value is not equal to 1. The value equals to 2, as we've already calculated. So it skips this case. It goes directly to the next one. Okay, is it equal to 2? Yes. So what's going to be the output? 2. And then comes to the break, it goes to the end of the switch statement. So the output is going to be 2. And if we say the value equals to 5, what happens? It evaluates to 5. This value is going to be 5. Is it a case 1? Is it equal to 1? No. So it skips this case. Is it equal to 2? No. It skips this one as well. So we don't have any other cases, and the value is not one of those cases which are already in the switch. So what is going to be executed? The default value. So what is inside the default? This statement is inside the default. So it prints this expression, which is neither 1 nor 2, and then this breaks out the switch and goes to the end of the statement. So what happens if the break statement is not written? For example, if we've got integer value equals to 1 switch value, and we say case 1 cout 1 or anything you are going to write, and then you are say case 2 cout cout 2, and then break, and default is going to print this expression. So for example, the value is 1. It comes to this point and it evaluates this value. So it is 1. Yes, 1 equals to that one which we already initialized or given to the value. So this statement is going to be printed or is going to be executed. We don't have any break statement here. If we don't have that break statement after the case, what happens? It goes to the next statement to execute it. So it comes to this statement as well, with regardless reading this case too. It directly comes to this statement if we don't have that break statement there, and executes this one as well. And then you are saying break, then this break breaks down the switch. So if you don't have that break as well, what happens? It comes to this statement as well. It executes this one, and then it goes to the end of the switch. So evaluates to 1. Yes, it's equal to 1. So it prints 1. We don't have break, so it goes to the next line. So this one is going to be executed. Prints 2 as well, and then this break breaks out the statement. So the output is going to be 1/n2. So, and an important thing in switch statement which must be considered is that the switch expression must be of integral types, such as, for example, integer, character, or boolean. We can't apply the switch statement to evaluate a floating point or a float type variable or a character variable or a string variable or stuff like that. Okay, so those examples are going to be wrong, or that there are some errors in those kind of programs, because the switch cannot be a float value, or the switch cannot be a string value or a character. And then for the case, we need to have a constant value. We can't put a variable in the cases. And let's see, int value, switch value. So it's all right for the switch, but let us come to the cases. We have case 0, it's a value is okay. We have case defined. Let's see what's defined. Define, is a constant which is defined to 1. It is all right, and there is nothing error with this case. And then we say case constant 2, and the const 2 is 2, so there is no problem, but the case doesn't accept variables to be inside it, so this case can't be evaluated to this variable. So the program gives you an error, and it terminates your program. So you need to be aware that the variables can't be in the case statement. So let's summarize how to translate a flowchart into C++ code. So we come to this condition. So we say if this condition, that means if this condition is true, what happens? If this condition is true, execute this statement and then go to the end, or do nothing, or go to the other portion of the program. So if this condition is true, come to execute this statement. If it is false, do nothing. That's why we haven't written the false part of the flowchart. Okay, so if the condition is true, come to execute this statement. So the statement and the statement. If the condition is true, come to execute this statement. Else, do nothing. Else, do nothing. That's why we haven't written the else part. And we have this example for printing a number where where the number is only negative. So we come to the condition. In the condition we say if n is less than 0, if n is less than 0. If it is true, what happens? Print n. So if it is true, come to the true part, see out n. If it is false, do nothing. That's why we haven't written anything in the false part of the if. And we have this other example. We say if this condition is true, execute the statement 1. So if the condition is true, execute the statement 1. Now in the flowchart we've got the false part as well. So we say if this condition is false, come to execute the statement 2, or this statement. So if it is true, come to execute this statement. Else, we are executing statement 2, which is written here. So just have a look on this if and else condition. In the flowchart we've got the false part as well. You need to implement it in the C++ code just like the flowchart. So we need to have the false part as well in the C++ code. And we've got this example. We say if p equals 2q. So we say if p equals 2q. If it is true, come to execute the first part. P equals to 0, q equals to 0. Okay, we did that. If it is false, we say else for the false part. So call this function to exchange p and q. Then we are calling the function exchange p and q, variable p and variable q, sorry, and then print p and q, see out p and q. Okay, so in here we've got two parts, the true part, which is this one, and the false part, which is this one. Another example, we say if condition 1 is true, come to execute statement 1. If condition 1 is true, come to execute statement 1. If this one is not true, okay, then we are going to we are going to have another condition. So we say else if condition 2 is true, come to execute this statement. Then we are coming to this point, else if condition n is true, come to execute this statement n. Okay, and then for the last part we are not checking for any other condition, we just say else. Okay, so if this one is true, this one, else if this one is going to be executed, else if this one is true, then this one is going to be executed, and we don't have any other conditions. So for all the other remaining conditions we are going to write down else, and this one is going to be executed for all of them. Let's take a look on this example. Let's say identify the grade of a score. So if the score is greater than 90, come to execute this one. If it is false, so it must be something else. If it is greater than 75, grade is B, and so on for the other values. So we say if score is greater than 90, so grade equals to A. Else if the score greater than 71, grade equals to B. Else if the score greater than 60, the grade is going to be C. Else if the score is greater than 50, what is going to happen? Grade equals to D. This one is very important. We don't have any other condition. So instead of the false, we are just writing else, so the grade is going to be F. So whenever in the false part we have a condition, we need to write down else if we got more than two conditions. For example, here we've got four different conditions, but for only multiple conditions or only two conditions, you can just write down if and else. But here For the second one, we got another condition. We need to write down else if, else if, else if, else. Okay. And here we are implementing this flowchart using switch and case expression or statement. So what's going to happen? It comes to this point, it checks for the expression. So expr, so switch expr, and then if it is true, if it's equal to val1, and then if it is true, so what happens? Statement 1 is going to be executed, and then we say break in order to go for the end of the switch. If not, so there may be some other condition. If expression variable equals to val2, what's going to happen? This one is going to be executed, statement 2. Then we may have val3, val4, and we come up to expression equals to val(n). If this one is true, what's going to happen? Statement n. So if none of them is true, so what's going to happen? We comes to the last condition, we say else. For all the other conditions, what we are going to be having, this one, statement m. Statement m is going to be executed. So we are changing this false part. Apart from all the other conditions, what's going to happen? The default statement is going to be executed, such as this example. So we are saying switch great. Okay, our variable is great, so we are evaluating it. Then at the beginning we are evaluating it to a. If it is true, this one is going to be executed. If it is false, we have another case, we have another condition, so we say case b, and then see out this one, and then break. Case c, case d, see out adequate, and then break. So we say false if even the case this one, the grade equals to d, or this condition is false. What's going to happen? We may have so many other conditions, and for all of them, what are we going to print? We are going to print fail. Okay, and then break in order to go to the end of the flow